Hey there, survivors. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to this wild ride. I'm thrilled you're here. If you enjoy what you hear, hit that subscribe button. It's the fuel that keeps these stories coming your way. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're listening from. I'd love to hear from you. Now, buckle up, because tonight's tale is a plunge into chaos, a front row seat to the unraveling of everything we take for granted. Imagine this. 1 minute, you're sipping coffee, joking with coworkers, and the next, you're staring down the barrel of a zombie apocalypse through a headset. This is the story of Liam Tran, a call center worker who thought he'd seen it all, until the night the dead started walking. Let's get started. My name's Liam Tran, and for the last 5 years, I've been the guy on the other end of the line when your world falls apart. I work at the Northeast Regional Emergency Call Center, just a big, gray building tucked away in an industrial park outside the city, surrounded by chain-link fences and humming streetlights. It's not glamorous, but it's home. I've always believed in what we do here, being the calm in the storm, the voice that says help's on the way when someone's screaming about a car wreck or a kitchen fire. I grew up watching those old 911 shows on TV, dreaming of making a difference. 5 years in, I've handled everything from heart attacks to lost kids, and I've gotten pretty good at keeping my cool. Stress? Sure, it's part of the gig, but I thought I could handle anything. That was before the night everything changed, before the calls stopped being about emergencies we could fix and started being about something we couldn't even comprehend. It was a Thursday, late shift, about 9 p.m. The call center was quiet, the kind of quiet that settles in when the city's winding down. Outside, the February chill was biting. I could feel it creeping through the walls despite the overworked heater buzzing in the corner. Inside, the fluorescent lights cast a sterile glow over rows of cubicles, each one a little fortress of headsets, monitors, and half-empty coffee mugs. My team was a good bunch. Sarah, who could talk anyone off a ledge. Marcus, the jokester who kept us sane. And our supervisor, Henry, a grizzled vet who'd seen it all and still chain-smoked on his breaks. We were midway through a slow night. Nothing major, just a fender bender on I-95 and a guy who'd locked himself out of his apartment. Marcus was tossing a stress ball across the room, and Sarah was scrolling her phone, muttering about the latest TikTok drama. Me? I was nursing a cup of lukewarm coffee, waiting for the next call to light up my screen. That's when it happened. A sharp beep cut through the chatter, and every monitor in the room flashed red. An alert scrolled across the screens in blocky white text. Warning: unusual activity detected downtown. Stay calm. Await instructions. I froze, mug halfway to my lips. Sarah looked up, eyebrows raised. What the hell's that? She said, half laughing. Marcus caught his stress ball and smirked. Probably some drunk idiots starting a brawl. Or a glitch. Bet IT's gonna have a field day with this. Henry stubbed out his cigarette on the edge of his desk and squinted at the screen. Never seen that phrasing before, he muttered, but he waved it off. Keep your stations. Probably nothing. We all nodded, shrugging it off. A glitch, a prank, maybe a weird drill no one bothered to tell us about. The Northeast Center had its quirks, old systems, spotty updates from the higher-ups. I figured it'd be cleared up in 10 minutes, tops. But then my headset beeped. Line 1 lit up green. I tapped the button, slipping into my usual script. Northeast Emergency Services, this is Liam. How can I assist you? The voice on the other end was shaky, high-pitched, a woman, maybe in her 30s. I don't know what's happening, she stammered. There's someone banging on my door, but they won't answer me. I yelled through the window, told them to go away, but they keep hitting it. And there's this sound, like a growl, or, she trailed off, breathing hard. I leaned forward, my training kicking in. Ma'am, can you tell me your location? Are you safe right now? She rattled off an address downtown, near the old warehouse district. I'm locked inside, she said. But it's loud. It's not stopping. Stay where you are. I told her, typing the address into the system. I'm dispatching police to check it out. Keep the line open, okay? She whispered a faint, okay, and I flagged the call to Henry. He frowned, scribbling a note, but before he could say anything, Sarah's line rang. Then Marcus's. Then mine again. Within seconds, the room exploded into a cacophony of ringing phones, each one blinking like a distress signal. I hit the next call. Northeast emergency. This is Liam. They're everywhere. A man shouted, his voice raw with panic. Dozens of them, walking down Main Street, attacking people. I saw one guy get bit, and he kept going after this lady. They're not human, man, they're not. A crash cut him off, followed by a scream that made my stomach lurch. The line went dead. I stared at my screen, heart thudding. What the hell was that? Marcus said, ripping off his headset. His caller had just hung up too, mid-sentence. Sarah's voice trembled as she spoke into her mic. Sir, slow down. Where are you? What do you mean they're breaking through? She looked at me, wide-eyed. He says something's smashing the windows at his store. People who don't stop, even when they're bleeding. Henry stood up, barking at us. Keep taking calls. Log everything. But his face was pale, and I could see the doubt creeping in. The next hour was a blur. Call after call flooded in, each one worse than the last. A mother sobbing that her neighbor had tried to bite her kid through the fence. A truck driver yelling about bodies staggering across the highway, ignoring his horn. A teenager whispering that they were in her yard, clawing at the shed where she was hiding. Every story painted the same picture. People, or things, moving like they didn't feel pain, attacking without reason, drawn to noise and light. I typed frantically, relaying locations to Henry, but the system was lagging, pins piling up on the digital map until it looked like a war zone. Then the screens flashed again. Another alert, this time in bold, unmissable letters. State of emergency. Zombie outbreak confirmed. Remain indoors. Avoid contact. Await further instructions. The word zombie hit like a punch to the gut. Marcus laughed, but it was hollow. You've got to be kidding me. Zombies? Like Walking Dead zombies. Sarah hugged her arms to her chest. This isn't funny, Marcus. This is real. Henry slammed his fist on the desk. Enough. Focus. We've got people out there who need us. But the room went quiet. Not because we stopped talking, but because the weight of it sank in. Zombies. It sounded insane, like a bad movie or a Halloween prank gone too far. Except the calls kept coming, and they were too consistent, too detailed to dismiss. They're walking through glass like it's nothing, one guy said, his voice cracking. My brother shot one, and it didn't even flinch. Another, they're swarming my street, dozens of them. What do? I stuck to the script as best I could. Lock your doors, stay quiet, help's coming. But I didn't know if it was true. No police chatter came through the radio. No ambulances. Just us, and a city spiraling into hell. The lights flickered overhead, a low hum rumbling through the walls. Sarah jumped. What was that? Henry waved it off. Grid's under strain. Generator will kick in if we need it. But his eyes darted to the door, and I knew he was as rattled as the rest of us. The calls didn't slow down. A woman hiding in her attic said she could hear footsteps downstairs. Heavy, uneven, not human. They got my husband, she whispered. He went to check the noise, and now he's one of them. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. Ma'am, barricade the attic door. Don't make a sound. We're sending help. But the lie tasted bitter. No one was coming. Not yet, maybe not ever. Around 11 p.m., Sarah patched a radio signal through her console, something she'd picked up from a police scanner. It was garbled, cutting in and out, but the words chilled me. Drawn to noise, stay silent. Bites spread it. She turned to us, face ashen. Did you hear that? They're saying these things, zombies, go after sound. And bites, she didn't finish, but we all understood. Marcus muttered, so it's real. Holy crap, it's real. Henry snapped at us to keep working. but his hands were shaking as he lit another cigarette. The calls kept piling up. A guy trapped in his car, surrounded by them, pounding on the windows. A nurse at Mercy General saying the ER was overrun. Patients turning on staff, biting, clawing. "We're locking ourselves in the break room," she said, "but I don't know how long the doors will hold." I logged it, flagged it, but the map was a mess. Red dots everywhere. No safe zones left. My stomach twisted every time a call cut off with a scream or a thud. I'd say stay on the line, but too often, all I got back was static. Then came the one that broke me. My headset beeped, and a small voice whispered, "Hello? Is anyone there?" A kid, maybe 10 years old. "Hey, buddy," I said, softening my tone. "This is Liam. Where are you?" He sniffed, like he'd been crying. "I'm in my room. My parents, they're different now. They got bit outside, and now they're banging on my door." I locked it, but it's shaking. My heart sank. I could hear the thumping in the background, relentless, like a drumbeat of doom. "Okay, listen to me," I said. "Push something heavy against the door, a dresser, anything. Then hide somewhere small, like a closet. Don't let them hear you." He whimpered, "I'm scared." They sound so mad. I clenched my fist, fighting the lump in my throat. "You're doing great, kid. Stay quiet," and all a glass shattered on his end. He screamed, a short, piercing cry, and the line went dead. I ripped off my headset, slamming it on the desk. Sarah grabbed my arm. "Liam, you okay?" I couldn't answer. That kid's voice echoed in my head, and all I could see was my little sister, Ellie. She lived 20 miles away, in a little apartment near the university. I tried calling her earlier, between calls, but the lines were jammed. Was she safe? Hiding? Or... I shook the thought away, forcing myself back to work. But every ring of the phone felt like a plea I couldn't answer, a life slipping through my fingers. By midnight, the center was a pressure cooker. The lights flickered again, longer this time, and the air felt thick with sweat and fear. Henry paced, muttering about the power company, but we all knew it wasn't just a glitch. The city was dying out there, and we were stuck in here, tethered to our desks by duty, or maybe just denial. The calls kept coming, each one a new nightmare. A man whispering from a basement, saying they were upstairs, breaking everything. A woman sobbing that her dog had barked, and now the yard was full of shadows. I gave the same advice, hide, stay silent, but it felt like shouting into a void. Then the screens went black for a second before a new alert blared. Emergency update, zombie outbreak widespread. No rescue inbound. Seek shelter immediately. Marcus swore under his breath. No rescue? What are we supposed to do? Henry barked. We stay put. We're the last line for these people. But his voice cracked, and I saw the truth in his eyes. He didn't know what was coming any more than we did. The phones rang on, a chorus of desperation. I answered one, a guy trapped in his high-rise, watching figures shuffle through the streets below. "They're everywhere," he said, voice flat with shock. "Like ants. They don't stop." I told him to block the stairwell, but he just laughed, a hollow sound. Too late for that. They're already in the lobby. The line cut out. I stared at my headset, hands trembling. How many more could we lose? Around 1 a.m., the lights dimmed to a sickly yellow glow. The generator kicked in, a hoarse rumble that shook the floor. Sarah found another radio snippet. Infection confirmed. Bites and scratches. Avoid contact. We exchanged looks, the reality sinking deeper. If this was spreading, how long did we have? I thought of Ellie again, her goofy laugh, her habit of leaving the TV on all night. Was she barricaded somewhere, waiting for me? I dialed her number again. Nothing. Busy signal. My chest tightened. The calls slowed, but the ones that came through were worse. Static, then faint groaning. A woman's voice, barely audible. They're inside. Oh God. Their click. Silence. I ended those calls fast, not wanting to hear the end. Marcus leaned over, voice low. "Liam, this isn't riots or floods. This is biblical. What are we even doing here?" I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that every time I picked up the phone, I was the last voice someone might hear. and that weight was crushing me. By 2 a.m., the center felt like a tomb. The ringing dwindled, replaced by an eerie quiet. Henry disappeared to check the back exit, said he'd be right back. He didn't come back. Sarah found his clipboard by the door, smeared with something dark. We didn't say it out loud, but we all knew. The map on my screen was a sea of red, the city swallowed by chaos. I answered one last call that hour, a man, calm but broken. "They got my wife," he said. "She's one of them now. I just wanted to say thanks for trying." Before I could respond, a crash echoed through the line, and it went dead. I sat back, staring at the ceiling. The lights flickered again, weaker now. Sarah whispered, "We can't keep doing this forever, Liam." I nodded, but I couldn't move. Not yet. There were still people out there, calling for help. And somewhere, maybe, Ellie was one of them. I wasn't ready to give up, not while I could still hear their voices pleading in the dark. The call center was a pressure cooker now, the air thick with the smell of burnt coffee and desperation. The generator's hum was a constant drone, a lifeline we clung to as the lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the cubicles. Sarah was right. We couldn't keep doing this forever, but abandoning my post felt like abandoning every voice still reaching out. I glanced at my phone again, Ellie's name glowing on the screen from my last failed call. No signal, no answer, just a blank void where her voice should have been. I shoved it back in my pocket, forcing myself to focus. There was work to do, even if it felt more like holding a flashlight in a hurricane. My headset beeped again, and I answered on autopilot. "Northeast Emergency, this is Liam." A woman's voice came through, low and frantic, like she was afraid to be heard. "They're in my building," she whispered. "I'm on the 5th floor, locked in my apartment, but I can hear them downstairs in the halls, dragging their feet, banging on doors." I pulled up the map, but it was useless, too many red pins, too much overlap. "What's your address?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. She gave it, some high-rise off Chestnut Street, smack in the middle of downtown. "Okay, listen to me," I said. "Push something heavy against your door, a couch, a table. Stay quiet, and don't let them know you're there." "I tried," she said, her voice breaking, "but they're getting louder. I think they broke into 5B, my neighbor's place." I heard screaming, and now it's just scratching. A shiver ran down my spine. I could picture it, those things, whatever they were, clawing at walls, relentless. "Help's coming," I lied, the words tasting like ash. "Just hold on." She let out a shaky breath. "Thanks. I just needed to hear someone." Then a thud echoed through the line, sharp and close. She gasped. "Oh God, they're at my door." The call cut to static. I stared at my screen, hands clenched, waiting for her to come back. She didn't. Sarah caught my eye from her station, her face pale under the dim lights. "Another one?" she asked. I nodded, throat tight. "Yeah, 5th floor downtown. Didn't make it." She bit her lip, turning back to her own call, but I could see her hands trembling. Marcus was quieter now, his usual wisecracks replaced by a grim focus as he muttered instructions into his mic. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in with every dropped call, every scream that faded to silence. Around 2:30 a.m., the phones hit a lull, not a relief, but a gut punch. Fewer rings meant fewer survivors, fewer people with working phones or the strength to dial. The ones who got through sounded weaker, their voices frayed at the edges. I picked up a call from a guy hiding in a convenience store freezer. "They're outside," he said, teeth chattering, banging on the glass. "I locked myself in here, but it's so cold, man. I don't know how long I can stay." I could hear the muffled thumps through the line, rhythmic and unyielding. "Keep the door shut," I told him. "They'll move on if they don't hear you." He laughed, a brittle sound. "Move on? They don't stop. You ever seen one up close?" I hadn't, and I didn't want to. "Just hang in there," I said. "We're working on it." Another lie. He didn't call me out on it, but the line went dead a minute later. I didn't need to guess why. The lights flickered again, plunging us into darkness for a heartbeat before the generator coughed them back to life. Sarah jumped, knocking over her water bottle. It hit the floor with a loud clack. and we all froze, staring at it like it was a gunshot. "Sorry," she whispered, but her eyes darted to the doors, 3 of them, all steel, all locked. No windows on the main floor, just concrete and fluorescent hum. We'd always joked this place was a bunker. Now it felt like a trap. Henry still wasn't back. He'd been gone 20 minutes, maybe more, since he'd grabbed his flashlight and headed for the back exit. "Checking the perimeter," he'd said, like this was a routine power outage. Sarah found his clipboard near the door, streaked with something dark and sticky. "Could be coffee," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. I didn't want to think about it. Henry out there, alone, maybe worse. "He'll turn up," I said, more to myself than anyone. But the doubt gnawed at me, sharp and cold. The next call came at 3 a.m., and it stuck with me. A man, older, his voice rough but steady. "This the emergency line?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Northeast Center, Liam speaking. What's your situation?" He sighed, long and heavy. "I'm in my garage, barricaded with some plywood and a crowbar. Lost my wife yesterday, been out front. She's one of them now, wandering the yard. I can see her through the crack in the door." My stomach twisted. "I'm sorry," I said, meaningless but all I had. "Where are you?" He gave an address on the edge of town, near the old mill. "Doesn't matter much," he said. "Just wanted to talk. Been hearing your folks on the radio. Neighbors said you're still holding the line. Figured I'd say thanks before." He trailed off. "Before what?" I pressed, leaning into the mic. He chuckled, a dry, tired sound. "They're at the garage door now. Been quiet all night, but I dropped a wrench a minute ago. Guess that woke him up." I heard it then, dull thuds, wood creaking. "Get out of there," I said, urgent. "Find a window, anything, no point." He cut in. "Legs busted from yesterday, running from her. This is it for me. But you keep doing what you're doing, kid. You're a lifeline out there." A loud crack split the air on his end, followed by a groan, not his. "Gotta go," he said. "Take care." The line clicked off. I sat there, staring at the blinking call ended on my screen, feeling like I'd just lost something I couldn't name. Sarah nudged me, her voice low. "You can't save them all, Liam." "I know," I snapped, sharper than I meant. She flinched, and I softened. "Sorry. It's just that guy. He didn't even try." She nodded, eyes glassy. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he was done fighting. I didn't have a response. The truth was, I wasn't sure how much fight I had left either. The generator sputtered, the lights dimming to a sickly orange. Marcus swore, kicking his chair. "This thing's gonna die on us. And then what?" No one answered. We all knew. Then what? Darkness, no phones, no heat. Just us and whatever was outside those doors. I tried Ellie again, still nothing. My mind spun worst-case scenarios. Her apartment overrun, her hiding under the bed, her. I stopped myself, focusing on the next call instead. It was a woman, whispering so soft I had to crank the volume. "They're in the house," she said. "I'm in the pantry, locked it, but they're close. My kids are with me." I heard faint sniffling in the background, tiny and terrified. "Where are you?" I asked, fingers flying over the keyboard. She gave an address in the suburbs, a quiet neighborhood I'd driven through 100 times. "Okay, listen," I said. "Keep your kids quiet, cover their mouths if you have to. Don't move until they're gone." She choked back a sob. "I don't know if we can. They're right outside the door scratching, like animals." I heard it too, a slow, deliberate scrape, with splintering. "You've got this," I said, desperate to believe it. "Stay silent. Helps." I stopped myself. "No more lies. Just hold on," I finished. A sharp bang cut through the line, then a child's scream. "No," the woman cried, and the call dropped. I yanked off my headset, slamming my fist on the desk. Sarah grabbed my shoulder. "Liam, breathe." "I can't do this," I said, voice cracking. "They're dying out there, and I'm just sitting here, feeding them hope that doesn't exist." She squeezed harder. "You're giving them something, someone to hear them. That's not nothing." Maybe she was right, but it didn't feel like enough. The clock hit 4 a.m., though time was a blur without windows, just the endless glow of emergency lights. The phones were quieter now, maybe one every 10 minutes. Each call was a ghost story, a guy in a treehouse watching them circle below, a nurse in a locked ward hearing footsteps in the hall, a kid who'd climbed into an air vent to escape his turned parents. I logged them, gave advice, but the map was a graveyard of red dots, and the radio had gone silent. No police, no National Guard, just static. Marcus stood up, pacing. We're kidding ourselves. No one's coming. Henry's gone, the power's on its last legs, and we're sitting ducks. Sarah shot back. We leave, and who helps the one still calling? He threw up his hands. What help? We're guessing. Hide. Be quiet. We don't even know if it works. I stayed quiet, torn between them. Duty said stay. Survival said run. Ellie's face flashed in my mind, and I hated myself for not knowing if she was okay. The next call was the strangest yet. A man, calm, almost too calm. You're still there, he said, like he was surprised. Yeah, I replied. Northeast emergency, Liam. What's happening? He paused, then, this is the reckoning. The dead rising, it's in the scriptures, you know. Cleansing the earth. I frowned. Sir, where are you? Are you safe? He ignored me. They're outside my church. Dozens of them. God's soldiers, purging the wicked. I'm ready to join. A chill ran through me. Sir, stay inside, barricade the doors. He laughed softly. No need. My time's up. Yours too, maybe. The line went dead, leaving me with a creeping unease I couldn't shake. By 5 a.m., the generator was a dying beast, wheezing with every breath. The lights barely glowed, bathing us in a twilight haze. Sarah found a weak radio signal. Shelter at Northbridge. Dawn deadline. It cut out, but it sparked something. Hope, maybe, or desperation. Marcus latched onto it. That's it. We go there. Sarah hesitated. We don't know if it's real or safe. I didn't weigh in. My head was with Ellie, with that kid in the vent, with the woman in the pantry. Leaving felt like betrayal, but staying felt like suicide. The final call of the night came at 5:30. A girl, young, maybe 16. I'm in my dad's attic, she whispered. He told me to climb up here. He's downstairs, keeping them out. I hear fighting. Her voice shook, but she held it together. Where are you? I asked, typing fast. She gave an address near the river, 10 miles out. Okay, stay put, I said. Hide. Don't make a sound. She sniffed. He said you'd help. Said the call center's always there. My chest tightened. We're trying, I said, voice raw. Tell me what you hear. A crash boomed through the line, then a man's shout, angry, desperate. Dad, she cried, and the call ended in a burst of static. I sat back, numb. The generator sputtered one last time, and the lights died completely. Darkness swallowed us, broken only by the faint red glow of emergency exit signs. The phones went silent, no power, no lines. Just the three of us, breathing hard in the glow. Sarah whispered, That's it, isn't it? Marcus nodded. Yeah, it's over. I stood, legs shaky, and grabbed a flashlight from my desk. Not yet, I said. We've got that Northbridge signal. We can't stay here. Sarah looked torn, but she grabbed her jacket. Marcus hesitated, then followed. We moved to the back exit, Henry's exit, where the clipboard still lay, blood-streaked and abandoned. The steel door loomed ahead, cold and final. I put my hand on the handle, heart pounding. Outside, faint moans drifted on the wind, or maybe it was my imagination. Ellie was out there, somewhere. So were others, maybe still alive. I turned to Sarah and Marcus. Ready? They nodded, faces grim but resolute. I pushed the door open, and the cold hit us like a slap, stale, heavy with ash. The world beyond was a gray smear, streetlights dead, buildings hunched in silence. Shadows moved in the distance, too far to tell if they were human or something else. We stepped out, flashlights cutting thin beams through the dark, and the door thudded shut behind us, locking away the call center, our last tether to the world we'd known. The cold hit me like a fist as we stepped outside, the air thick with a metallic tang, ash, maybe, or something worse. The emergency exit clanged shut behind us, a dull thud that echoed in the stillness, sealing off the call center and everything it had been, our sanctuary, our prison, our lifeline to a world that didn't exist anymore. My flashlight beam sliced through the gloom, catching glints of frost on the asphalt and the hulking shapes of parked cars in the lot. Sarah clutched her jacket tighter, her breath puffing in short, nervous bursts. Marcus gripped a crowbar he'd snagged from the supply closet, his knuckles white. "No going back now," he muttered, eyes darting to the shadows. The industrial park was a ghost town. No hum of traffic, no flicker of streetlights, just an oppressive quiet broken by the wind whistling through broken fences. Beyond the lot, the city skyline loomed, a jagged silhouette under a sky choked with gray clouds. I strained my ears, half expecting sirens or screams, but all I caught was a low, distant moan, too faint to pinpoint, too real to ignore. "Which way?" Sarah whispered, her voice tight. I pointed north, toward the river. "That radio signal, North Bridge. It's our best shot." Marcus nodded, but his jaw was set, like he didn't trust it. Neither did I, not fully, but sitting still wasn't an option. We moved fast, sticking to the shadows, our footsteps crunching on gravel. The call center sat on the edge of town, a sprawl of warehouses and empty lots between us and the bridge, maybe 5 miles, if we cut straight through. In a car, it'd be nothing. On foot, with God knows what out there, it felt like a marathon through a minefield. I kept my flashlight low, sweeping the ground ahead, every nerve on edge. Ellie's face flashed in my mind, her grin, her messy ponytail, and I pushed harder, needing to believe she was still out there, waiting for me to find her. The first sign of trouble came at the edge of the lot. My beam caught something, a figure slumped against a dumpster, head lolling. "Hold up," I said, raising a hand. Sarah froze mid-step, Marcus tightening his grip on the crowbar. We crept closer, and the smell hit us. Rot, sharp and sour. It wasn't a survivor. The guy's shirt was torn, his chest a mess of dark, glistening wounds. His eyes were open, milky white, staring at nothing. "Dead," Sarah whispered, but then his head twitched, a jerky, unnatural motion. A groan rasped from his throat, and he lurched forward, arms clawing the air. "Back!" Marcus yelled, swinging the crowbar. It cracked against the thing's skull, a wet crunch that dropped it instantly. The sound echoed, too loud in the silence. We stood there, breathing hard, staring at the crumpled heap. "That's one of them," Sarah said, voice shaking. "A zombie." I nodded, stomach churning. I'd heard it described 100 times over the phone. Shambling, relentless, drawn to noise. But seeing it up close was different. Real. Marcus wiped the crowbar on his jeans, grimacing. "Let's move before more show up." We didn't need to be told twice. The moan had stirred something. Faint rustles in the dark, shapes shifting between the warehouses. We bolted, cutting through an alley littered with trash and broken pallets. My flashlight bounced, throwing wild shadows, but I didn't dare turn it off. The bridge was our only lead, a fragile thread of hope from that garbled radio message. North Bridge, dawn deadline. If it was real, we had maybe an hour, assuming dawn was near, though the sky gave no hint, just an endless shroud of gray. The alley spit us out onto a service road, flanked by chain-link fences and overgrown lots. Abandoned cars dotted the pavement, doors ajar, windows smashed. One had blood streaked across the hood, drying black in the cold. "Looks like people tried to get out," Sarah said, peering inside an empty sedan. A kid's backpack sat on the passenger seat, unzipped, toys spilling out. I turned away, not wanting to imagine what happened to them. "Keep moving," I said, voice hoarse. Every second we lingered felt like a countdown. Half a mile in, we hit our first real hurdle, a chain-link gate blocking the road, padlocked shut. Beyond it, the path stretched toward the river, a straight shot through an old rail yard. Marcus rattled the gate, cursing. "Locked tight. We'll have to climb." Sarah eyed the top, barbed wire glinting faintly. That's gonna hurt. I scanned the fence, 10 feet high, no gaps. No choice, I said, slinging my flashlight into my belt. Boost me up. Marcus cupped his hands, and I stepped in, grabbing the links. The metal bit into my palms as I hauled myself up, careful of the barbs. I swung a leg over, wincing as wires snagged my jeans, then dropped to the other side with a thud. Sarah went next, lighter and faster, landing beside me with a grunt. Marcus tossed the crowbar over and climbed, swearing as the barbs tore his sleeve. He hit the ground hard, rolling his ankle. "I'm fine," he snapped, limping upright. "Let's go." The rail yard was a maze of rusted tracks and boxcars, hulking shapes in the dark. We wove between them, my flashlight catching graffiti and bullet holes, signs of a fight or a last stand. The moans were louder now, a chorus drifting from multiple directions. "They're close," Sarah whispered, gripping my arm. I nodded, scanning the shadows. "Stay sharp. Noise draws them." We moved quieter, steps soft, breath shallow, but my heart hammered so loud I swore they'd hear it. We were halfway through the yard when it happened. A boxcar door rattled, then slid open with a screech that split the silence. Figures spilled out, 3, maybe 4, staggering into the open, their movements jerky, heads cocked like they were listening. My flashlight caught their faces, slack, gray, eyes sunken and dead. "Run," Marcus hissed, but it was too late. One turned, letting out a guttural snarl, and they lurched toward us. I grabbed Sarah's hand, pulling her behind a stack of ties. Marcus swung the crowbar, catching the first one in the jaw. It stumbled but didn't fall, reaching for him with twisted fingers. "Go," he yelled, swinging again. I dragged Sarah toward a gap in the cars, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly. Behind us, Marcus grunted, metal clanging against bone. I risked a look. He downed one, but 2 more were closing in, and a third was clawing up from the tracks. "Marcus, come on," I shouted. He bolted, limping hard, and we ran, weaving through the maze. The moans multiplied, echoing off the metal, a hunting call that chilled my blood. We burst out the far side of the yard, hitting a stretch of open road along the riverbank. The bridge loomed ahead, a dark silhouette against the gray, a steel truss, maybe half a mile off. "There," Sarah panted, pointing, but the moans followed, relentless, and I knew we weren't clear yet. The road was a graveyard of wrecks, cars piled into each other, some burned out, others abandoned mid-flight. We ducked behind an overturned van, catching our breath. Marcus clutched his ankle, face twisted in pain. "Twisted it bad back there," he said, grimacing. "You two go. I'll hold him off." Sarah shook her head. "No way. We stick together." I agreed, but my eyes were on the bridge. Dawn had to be close. Faint light bled through the clouds, a muddy glow. "We're almost there," I said. "Lean on me." He slung an arm over my shoulder, and we hobbled forward, Sarah scouting ahead. The moans faded, then surged again, closer from the wrecks. Shapes emerged, staggering out from between cars, a woman in a torn coat, a kid with a mangled arm, an old man dragging a broken leg. "They're everywhere," Sarah whispered, voice cracking. I tightened my grip on Marcus. "Keep moving. Don't stop." We pushed through, dodging outstretched hands, my flashlight a lifeline in the gloom. Sarah grabbed a pipe from the road, swinging at a zombie that got too close. Its head snapped back, and it crumpled. "Nice one," Marcus grunted, but his weight was dragging me down. The bridge was in sight, its entrance clogged with more wrecks, but something else caught my eye. A makeshift barricade, sandbags and wire, half collapsed. "That's it," I said, hope flaring. "The shelter." We reached the base of the bridge, scrambling over debris. The barricade was a mess. Bullet casings littered the ground, blood smeared on the concrete. A sign hung crookedly. "Evac Point North Bridge, closed at dawn." My stomach sank. Dawn was here, or near enough, and the place was deserted. "No," Sarah breathed, kicking a sandbag. They're gone. Marcus slumped against a guardrail, panting. Or dead. I swept my flashlight across the scene. A Humvee sat tilted in the ditch, doors open, no bodies. A clipboard fluttered in the wind, pinned under a rock. I grabbed it, scribbled notes, smeared with dirt. Overrun 0400. Fall back to East Base. Survivors head east. East. A military post, maybe 30 miles out. There's still a chance, I said, holding it up. East Base. Sarah nodded, but Marcus groaned. I can't make 30 miles on this leg. Before we could argue, a snarl ripped through the air. Zombies poured from the wrecks behind us, dozens now, drawn by our voices, our flashlight beams. Move, I yelled, hauling Marcus up. We stumbled onto the bridge, its deck littered with more debris, bikes, bags, a stroller tipped on its side. The river churned below, black and silent. Sarah swung her pipe, clearing a path, but they were closing in, a wall of groaning, clawing death. Halfway across, Marcus slipped, hitting the deck hard. Leave me, he shouted, shoving me off. I'm slowing you down. Sarah spun back, eyes fierce. We're not leaving you. But the zombies were 20 feet away, their stench rolling over us. Rot and blood, thick enough to choke on. I locked eyes with Marcus. We'll come back for you, I said, hating every word. He shook his head, forcing a grin. Get to Ellie, man. Go. Sarah grabbed my arm, pulling me away as Marcus raised the crowbar, facing the horde. His first swing cracked a skull, but they swarmed him, a blur of limbs and teeth. I turned, running with Sarah, his yells fading into snarls. Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't stop. The far side of the bridge was clear, just open road stretching into the gray, toward the east. We hit the pavement, legs burning, lungs screaming. The moans grew distant, but I knew they'd follow. Sarah slowed, clutching her side. He's gone, she said, voice hollow. I nodded, unable to speak. Marcus had bought us time, maybe our lives. I wouldn't waste it. The road ahead was desolate. Fields on one side, the river on the other, no signs of life. The clipboard's words echoed. East Base. 30 miles. No food, no weapons beyond Sarah's pipe, no guarantee it was even there. But Ellie was out there, somewhere, and every step east was a step toward her, or at least the hope of her. I thought of the calls, the kid in the vent, the woman in the pantry, the old man in the garage. I couldn't save them. Maybe I could save her. Sarah straightened, wiping her face. What now? She asked. I took a deep breath, the cold searing my lungs. We keep going. East. Find that base. She nodded, resolute, and we started walking, the bridge shrinking behind us. The sky lightened, a faint gold threading through the gray, dawn, or close to it. No sirens, no choppers, just us and the wind. A mile out, my flashlight caught something, a glint in the ditch. A radio, cracked but intact, clipped to a torn uniform sleeve. I picked it up, twisting the dial. Static hissed, then a voice broke through, faint but clear. East Base holding, survivors report, avoid highways. It cut out, but it was enough. They're there, I said, clutching it like a lifeline. Sarah managed a small smile. Then we've got a shot. We walked on, the radio silent now, the world a muted expanse of ruin. I didn't know if East Base was real, if Ellie was alive, if we'd make it through the next hour. But we were moving, breathing, fighting. The call center was gone, its voices lost to the dark, but I carried them with me. Every plea, every scream, every thank you. They'd been my purpose. Now survival was. The road stretched east, endless and uncertain. Somewhere ahead, maybe help waited. Maybe Ellie did. Or maybe just more walkers, more loss. All I knew was we weren't done yet. Not while we had breath. Not while hope flickered, faint but stubborn, in the dawn's first light.